Smart money's on Vegas. I love California. The place is crawling with anarchs who don't want the hassle of Camarilla babysitters, so they booted every last one of them. Now the whole state's overrun with brat packs of biker and goth licks. Good place to recruit, let me tell you. They all hang out in gangs too, so they never have civil words for each other. Elam and I have been up and down the state a dozen times in as many years, and no one's wised up to us yet. We roll into town, go local, and convince a handful of anarchs that, hey, Sabbat's really where it's at if you want to stick it to the elders. Doesn't hurt that we're gorgeous, too. People, even vampires, seem to want to trust beautiful folks. Elam, actually her name's Lisa Marie because her dad was a big Elvis fan, but we shortened it to LM, which just changed into Elam over time. Looks like a model off of the runway. She always wears this battered straw cowboy hat that makes her look like a junkie, and I guess people just feel safe with her. Initially, anyway. I'm tall and thin and just shy of Elam's attractiveness. That and I have a way with people. People trust her. They do what I say. I slid my fat black 49 Merc up the curb in front of Package Store. What an exciting name. Elam and I got out and headed into the store. I gave Elam that behave look I always give her before we do, well, anything. Hey, Charlie! Elam and I are headed to Vegas. We need some money. Charlie, the Asian guy who owns Package Store, looked at me without fondness. I made a Charlie Chan rictus face at him, and he opened up the register, lifting the till to show me there was no money in it. Slow night. We haven't had any sales yet, Charlie told me. Oh, Chuck, don't lie to me, I said. You know I hate it when you lie. It just breaks my little old heart. Seriously, no one's been in the store all night except a couple of kids who tried to steal some 40s of OE. Look, you fish-headed squint. I stepped up to the counter, pressing my face against the bulletproof glass to look Charlie in the eyes. Just give me the goddamn money. The crash startled both of us. Whipping around to face the back of the store, we saw Charlie's wife sprawling halfway out of one of the beer coolers. Elam looked at me with a smirk. She stood in a pool of blood from Charlie's wife's gut where the broken glass had cut her almost in two. Oops. Charlie screamed and ran from the little booth, sandals flapping against his feet. He made it about 15 feet before I caught him by the belt and tossed him across the room into one of the coolers near his wife. Fucking hell, Elam, what's the matter with you? I shouted as I scrambled back to the booth and snatched up all the loose bills Charlie had cleverly stuffed under the register's till drawer. Now we have to go! I didn't care so much about the violence. I see plenty, believe me. As much as I cared about the inconvenience. We'd spent weeks leaning on Charlie, getting him to cough up extortion money and not call the cops afterwards. He certainly wasn't going to be too predisposed toward our little scheme anymore. Well, shit, Adam, she tried to grab my tits and then said I was trying to steal her husband. Elam, she doesn't speak any fucking English! Go get in the damn car! I pulled the drop safe from its mooring and yanked the phone cord from the wall. It wouldn't do to have the pigs or an ambulance show up before we were well on our way out. I spat on the floor and left, leaving the couple lying in piles of their spilled innards. Sorry, Charlie. I laughed. Fuck it. We were headed out of town anyway. The Merc needed gas about halfway between San Fran and Vegas, so I pulled it to a roadside station. I looked over at Elam, who was just sort of staring out the windshield at the vast flatness surrounding us. I gathered a few of the shadows cast by the buzzing fluorescent lights and wrapped them around her eyes, making her look like Marilyn Dietrich on heroin. I leaned across her and kissed her on the mouth. She bit my tongue and suckled a trickle of blood from me before putting her hand on my hip and pushing me away. While I was filling up the car, a blue and white Bel Air chop drop pulled into the lot with two guys inside. The driver was the kind of guy who would drive this pedestrian classic. Complete cheeseball who looked like he kicked Brian Seltzer's ass and took his clothes, right down to the wallet on chain. The passenger was a black kid with a shaved head and a leopard print shirt. He was wearing sunglasses even though it was dark. Nice Pontiac, the driver said, getting out. Loser. It's a Mercury, and thanks. Sorry, on the bottle? Nope, all natural. Nitrous is for girls. Want to go title to title? I smiled, not bothering to hide my fangs. Tell you what, kiddo. You win, You get my car. I win. I get your souls. He hesitated a second, but then nodded his head. Whatever, guy. I blew a kiss to Ellen through the windshield and winked. She knew what was going on. So I let the rock and roll star beat me. Between you and me, I could have washed him easily, but I didn't feel like it. That way, anyway. We both pulled over to the side of the road and climbed out of our cars. The kid was excited with his victory, but I had no intention of turning over my pride and joy. Looks like I won, mister. Pretty smarmy for an ignorant, soon-to-be ex-juice bag. I hit the kid, too hard, and broke his jaw. He looked at me in shock, eyes tearing up, mouth dangling open as a stream of blood and spit poured out. I guess you didn't really win, did you? I smiled. He turned to run, but Elam stood in his way. I grabbed him around the waist from behind, pinning his arms to his sides. As I lifted him, a cloud of the desert dust whiffed up. I hammered his face against the Bel Air's fender, and his head left a dent in a messy streak of blood. Elam stared at the black guy in the car as she licked a strip of VtM from the automobile. He yanked off his idiotic sunglasses, and all I could see of him were his eyes and teeth. It was dark, but he was fooling with something at the dashboard. As it turned out, he had taken a gun from the glove box. I dropped the unconscious kid and pulled his friend from the car. Elam snagged the revolver as it flew from his hand. Damn, son, you've got some spirit. Trade you, Elam. She tossed me the gun as I shoved the kid into her arms. The cylinder was full. I know you weren't going to shoot me. You just wanted to let me know the gun was there. I bet. So I wouldn't be scared, right? He didn't say anything. The guy squirmed in Elam's grip like a worm on a hook, grunting and gibbering a bit. He was all eyes and teeth again. Check this out, friend. I stretched out my arm in front of him, pointed the revolver at it, and bang! Right between whatever those two bones are called. Oh, fuck! Elam! I do believe I've hurt myself. She just laughed and nibbled the guy's ear a bit. Think you can take the heat, kiddo? Elam shoved the kid to the ground and pulled his head up a bit so that he could see me and his unconscious friend. With her knee in his back and her arm holding his to the ground, he wasn't going anywhere. I bet you can. I stepped on his wrist and pointed the gun at the back of his hand. Click. Empty chamber. I spun the cylinder back while Elam was taking the guy down. Now he knew I was serious, as if he didn't know before. I fired again anyway, blowing a hole through his hand. Blood spattered into my hair and across Elam's vest. He screamed, a rather uninspired howl, really, but it wasn't exactly exquisite torture. We have a winner, Elam shouted at him, pulling him up to his knees. Now get up! What the fuck is your name anyway? I threw the gun on the ground before him and went to gather up his friend. Kevin, the chump managed to stammer. Kevin? Elam sneered. That's such a fucking white boy name. She still crouched behind him, and she snaked her hand around to grab his crotch. I think we'll call you Judas instead. Pick up the gun, Judas. He fumbled for it with his good hand. Got it. Now shoot stray cats here, I said as I heaped the unconscious kid in front of our new friend. Judas pointed the shaking gun at the center of Stray Cat's back. No, dumb fuck! Shoot him in the back of the head so it comes out his face! Bang! Judas had some guts. Of course, he threw up immediately, so no style points for him. Good work, Judas. Elam, my dear, would you do the honors? Out came the straight razor, which fluttered across Judas's throat in the blink of an eye. I shoved No-Face into the Bel Air and jerked the whole thing up and over. Once it was on its roof, I pushed it around a bit so it would look like the driver had lost control and flipped it himself. By the time I finished, Elam, looking like a pristine mother nursing in the moonlight, had her wrist at Judas's mouth. And that is that, darling. I took a lick of Elam's wrist as she stood, and we bound Judas's wrists and ankles with the duct tape I kept in the toolbox. We tossed him in the trunk and finished with a slapdash stripe of tape over his mouth, just to be sure. Elam hopped atop the capsized Chevy, kicking at the fuel tank after pulling the line free. Gas spilled everywhere, collecting in sludgy pools in the sand. I flicked my lighter and tossed it toward the car, which went up like a 4th of July display. Elam writhed and swayed as the fire blazed around her. Damn, she's beautiful. We leaped into the murk and sped off toward Vegas as headlights appeared on the horizon behind us. Just inside Las Vegas, Elam and I got married at a drive-through chapel. I didn't have a ring, so I used a loose wing nut I found in the toolbox. Ellen said the marriage would never work. She cut off her ring finger with a straight razor and handed it to me, singing, "Divorce!" I yelled at her for bleeding all over the car, but it was done as soon as it started. I still keep that desiccated little thing in my pocket. We pulled into Treasure Island at the Mirage. As we drove up, two giant pirate ships were shooting at each other in an artificial lagoon they have set up, while bursts of pyrotechnics exploded all around them. Even the doorman was dressed as a buccaneer, all glitz, no class. It was getting early, and we needed to hole up for the day. Ellen and I sauntered up to the counter, and I harassed the clerk, who took it all graciously like the contemptible piece of juice bag shit he was. No doubt he dealt with lots of loudmouths who pretended to be high rollers. "No reservation? Then may I have your name, sir?" "Tom Cruise." "I see. And this would be Nicole Kidman?" "No, we broke up years ago. This is my sister, Leisure." Now I'll need to see your real name to get you in the system. The name I've given you will do." "It certainly will, sir. Enjoy your stay." We passed Robert Roulette on the way to the elevator. 2 minutes after entering our room, we were asleep in the bathtub, wrapped in blankets, having stuffed towels in the cracks under the door. I dangled the "Do Not Disturb" sign from the outer door's handle. I awoke to a gentle knocking at the bathroom door and nudged Ellen to rouse her. "It says do not disturb!" I couldn't find one of my shoes in the dark, and I cut myself on Ellen's straight razor while groping about. She climbed out of the tub and onto the counter as I gathered the darkness around the door jamb. My shoe hung on one of the shower knobs. "I'm afraid the matter is of considerable urgency, Mr. Cruz?" It was a man's voice, probably hotel security. Ellen seemed to have a bad feeling about it because she shook her head as she crouched on the counter. Time to play it crafty. "Hey, I'll be right out." Damn, my head hurts. Is that girl still out there? There wasn't anything in the bathroom that lent itself to be used as a weapon, but I suppose I didn't really need one. "No, Mr. Cruz, there's no girl out here." I mouthed to Ellen, "Meet me at the car in 10 minutes, and kissed her. She should have no difficulty getting out of the room, even if our guest was standing right in front of her. He'd never even see her. Opening the bathroom door, I stumbled out acting like a hungover juice bag. The visitor was indeed hotel security, but I could tell from the way he looked at me that something was up. He had one of those tragic suits, less than $200 off the rack at Penny's, and a demeanor that suggested he was good at getting his way. I wish I could have looked at his soul like Ellen could. But what the hell, I figured he was a ghoul just from the way he smelled. I straightened up and dropped the drunk act. "We have rules in this town, Mr. Cruz." "Stiers." "I beg your pardon?" "Stiers. Adam Stiers. I'm not Tom Cruise. I'm flattered by the compliment, but it's only a superficial resemblance." "Yes, well, Mr. Stiers, it appears that you care little for the rules in our town. The prospect of your continued presence here is not one we particularly relish. Definitely a ghoul, probably to a Ventru, but that suit. Why, because I bullied your check-in clerk? Among other things. I believe that you have left a member of your party in your car. The trunk, to be precise. He was tired." "I see. Truth be told, Mr. Stiers, I'm not the one to whom you need to explain yourself. I'm sure you're familiar with our traditions, and that you have no intention of flaunting them." God damn this guy's thoracic mouth. "My employer wishes to speak to you, and I'm to escort you to his offices." Now we were getting somewhere. With any luck, I could keep this anarch shtick going. The California plates on the car helped, and get some good dirt on how this town ran. A bit of research and a quick report to the Archbishop in Las Vegas would belong to the Sabbat. Take me to Mo Green, Fredo. I looked like hell. This would be good. I expected to go up, but the elevator went down instead. Curious. Those Ventru bastards usually do everything with as much extravagance as possible. We descended past the lower lobby, the basement, and even the garage. The ghoul had a special key that took us down this far. He hadn't pushed a button yet. The ghoul led me down a long, narrow hallway with bad fluorescent lighting and a smell like mouthwash. We exchanged a few meaningless pleasantries, him trying to cow me, and me trying to act all awed that I was about to meet the baddest Dracula in Vegas. I was supposed to meet Ellen back at the car in about 3 minutes, and it looked like I'd be late. I smiled thinking about it. Whoever had the misfortune of being in that parking garage when she started flipping out was going to be in a bad way. We passed through a pair of swinging doors like the kind they have in restaurant kitchens, into what I guess was a storage room. Metal shelves lined the room, stocked with large, industrial-sized cans of food and carpet cleaner or whatever. A few 55-gallon drums of some other unknown substance stood in the center of the room, one of which lay on its side, leaking brown goop. Duke, this isn't Tom Cruise. From what I saw, only the ghoul and I were in the room. No one had followed us, and there wasn't anywhere to hide. Bad. And what the fuck was this tape on the floor? We've already been through this, I said aloud to no one. The lights were weird in here, too yellow to be fluorescent, too harsh to be normal light bulbs. Your clerk spelled my name wrong. All of a sudden, a pair of men stood in front of me. One of them looked like someone had grabbed his neck and the top of his head and given it a good twist. His arms curled up on his suspended belly like crippled chicken wings, and his hands had sharp black claws at the end. The other guy wore glasses and a gray suit with black pinstripes, and he had a short, almost military haircut. "Welcome to Treasure Island," the distorted guy said in a pygmy voice. "I'm Montrose, and this is my associate, Alexander Cantor." Pinstripes nodded at me. "Perhaps you'd care to inform us as to your business here." "Not business, pleasure. I'm in from California to do a bit of gambling." "And the kindred in the trunk?" This guy was damn presumptuous, and I didn't like where this conversation was headed. We were driving in shifts. He had the night before. Quite an odd set of circumstances, don't you think, Adam Stiers, from the Anarch Free State? That was weird. Either he didn't know anything was up, or he saw through me and was trying to yank my chain. Perhaps an object lesson in how Prince Benedict keeps the rabble in line would do you some good. The ghoul's hand clamped down on my shoulder. Of course I was stronger. Grabbing the toadie's wrist, I spun and wrenched his pathetic arm from its socket, leaving it dangling from his shoulder. When I turned back around the two others, I could only assume they were licks too, were gone. And this is my associate, Alexander Cantor. The weird light in the room slid away from me as I coalesced the shadows into one thick tentacle. Duke winced when I shoved the tentacle up his ass, but his eyes bulged right back open when I forced it out his mouth. I dug the elevator key out of his pocket after tearing his wrists open with my teeth. The blood, so much of it, washed over the floor, and I left crimson footsteps as I bolted down the hallway to the lift. Ellen was upset. Surprise, surprise. 10 minutes! 10 fucking minutes, Adam! You said 10 minutes! I saw an arm jutting from underneath the car opposite us, but we could address that later. The car roared to life as I gunned the engine, whipping the car out of the parking place. I could see the night sky past the mechanical arm of the parking garage exit. I imagined the sky lit with orange, reflecting the flames licking up from the burning Treasure Island casino as the screams and chokes of those trapped inside the building issued forth. That too could be addressed later. My eyes were wide as I shoved a 20 at the attendant. She handed me my change and lifted the arm as I grabbed her hand and punched the gas. It's hard to fit a human body through those little sliding glass half windows, but it can be done, given enough strength. Her head hung limply as I dropped her at the curb. I roared across the street, and Ellen already had herself worked up. She leaned out the window and winged a pedestrian. I think he was wearing some god-awful Hawaiian shirt with a tire iron. Explain that shit to the cops, Montrose. We'll be back later. The sun was almost up when we got back to California. We ditched my beloved Mercury at a gas station 7 minutes out of Vegas and jacked a Jeep Grand Cherokee, while the guy who owned it went to pay for his gas. You should have seen his wife's face when Ellen opened up the door and jerked her out by the hair. "Bye, bitch!" she called as we sped away. We had to write off Judas. I don't envy the stupid fucker who lets him out of that trunk. We took back roads to avoid the police, then burned the Jeep about 20 minutes out of San Fran. A few nights later, we talked to Bishop Mark about the trip. He had the prince's name, 2 or 3 of the individual kindred's names, and a rough idea who was really pulling the strings. It turns out that some group called the Rothsteins had some significant influence in Vegas, and Montrose had seen a couple of our scouts before. So we had to take his dialogue with a grain of salt. The bishop thinks we'll move against Las Vegas in a few weeks. Give them some time to get over the Little Anarch incident. And as they settle back into their precious masquerade, we'll be right behind them with torches in hand. With all that went on in Vegas, I didn't even get a chance to pick up a legal hooker. Maybe next time. Roulette, a cautionary tale. It had been about 2 months since the last Sabbat scouting excursion, which meant that they were due for another one. Every so often, one of the bishops hiding in the SoCal sandbox decides the time is right to send another couple of shovelheads into town. On some sort of bad Hunter S. Thompson-style info-gathering jaunt. And it's my job to watch out for that sort of thing. Truth be told, it's not so hard to watch out for. This town is neck-deep in anarchs who think they're hard cases, but aren't. A real Sabbat badass sticks out like a sore thumb. So that's my job. His Majesty, Prince Benedict, not that low-rent Giovanni Rothstein who claims to run the town out of Bally's, tells me to watch for Sabbat infiltrators, which I do. When 1, or 2, or 3, they like to travel in groups, I've found. Members of the other side show up, I make my report to the Prince, and we bang heads and decide what to do. The decision varies from case to case, but usually we have to be delicate about squashing the bastards as soon as they show their faces. I mean, Sabbat spies aren't necessarily stupid. They go to ground with the best of them. That means if Sami Zamisi shows up, he's going to do it with a safety pin flash crafted under his nose so that he can claim to be an anarch. So if I go out there with my squad and take down the imposter, well, let's just say that any real anarchs he managed to fool would be up in arms about being oppressed by the man. At that point, the neonates would start throwing things and blowing the masquerade to hell sideways, and that would mean more work for me and mine. His Majesty, in case you were wondering, does not like to pay overtime. No, it makes a lot more sense to play along, and then either stake the spy en route to his private audience with the Prince, or feed the mark false information about our defenses, numbers, disposition, and so on. Send back 3 different scouting parties with 3 different reports, and you can almost hear them tearing into each other from here when someone takes the time to compare notes. It's a joy to ponder. Vegas is a very volatile town, you see. This burg survives on tourism, which means that if tourists start going missing, the visiting traffic goes down and the place goes to hell. But if we control the take, make sure that it's just the lonely and unloved who get taken, well, then this place is a paradise for our kind. You think the casinos have all-night buffets, you should see what the streets look like. That's why people like me, and I use the term people loosely, have to make sure that all the rules and regulations get followed. If anyone gets greedy or takes too much or does anything stupid in public, the entire game could go into the crapper. I like this place, and so does His Majesty, entirely too much to allow that to happen. The red phone rings. It only rings when there's something about to go down. I sigh as the damn thing keeps jangling, then walk across the room to pick it up. The Prince gives me a nice suite in the Mirage as part of my compensation package. It's a running joke that one of these years we're going to get dental. And I like that just fine. I never could have afforded a place like this when I was alive, and it's nice that Benedict appreciates what I do enough to give me this as a token of his esteem. I place the phone to my ear and make a non-committal noise. Duke, the ghoul who works hotel security, answers. Mr. Montrose? As if it would be anyone else on my Direct Connect phone. Good help has never been easy to find. Yes? I take it we've got visitors. Oh, we've got a live one indeed, sir. A live one. That was Duke's idea of a joke. He'd been using it every time he spotted a kindred for the past 15 years, and he hadn't quite warmed up to the notion that none of the rest of Prince Benedict's employees found the gag particularly amusing. Still, he was a good man in a fight, and loyal. Plus he has a good nose for sniffing out infiltrators. Useful talent, nah? Just one? 2, actually. He's currently giving the desk help something of a hard time, claiming his name is Tom Cruise. He's a bit too tall by half for that impersonation to take, but it's one of the more clever attempts I've seen in a while. Get his room assignment, and make sure no one goes in or out once he and his friends settle in. Have one of the specials handle the valet parking of their car, and check the trunk for ordnance. Also run the floorboards to see if they're trying to smuggle anything in, and have your friend at the LVPD to run the place to see if the car is hot. Duke's annoyance is palpable as he responds. They self-parked, Mr. Montrose. It was part of what tipped me off to their presence. Otherwise, I'll perform our functions as per our SOP. Do you have any other instructions? I found myself frowning. Something about this caper feels wrong. Nothing else. Just be extra careful on this one, okay? I've got a feeling. You always have a feeling, Mr. Montrose, Duke says as he hangs up. He's right, though I always have the same bad feeling in what used to be my gut, and I always give him the same orders once a suspicious character checks in or otherwise appears on the scene. That's one of the strengths of the team, though. Routine. Tradition. The knowledge that we're going to do it right this time, because we've done it right 100 times before. An hour later, Duke is sitting in an almost but not quite overstuffed beige chair in the corner of my suite, nursing a hideous concoction he calls a rusty nail. He claims that the taste of one of those monsters allows him to look forward to the tang of vitae he receives every month from Prince Benedict, but I think he just has lousy taste. Where shall I begin, Mr. Montrose? He says as I plant myself in the chair opposite his. Start with the basics, as always. Good old long-suffering Duke, completely predictable. The car was our first area of inquiry. It is, much to my surprise, completely legitimate. There's not much else spectacular about it, save that the car can probably get up to nearly 200 miles per hour in a pinch, guzzles gas dreadfully, and has the sort of solid steel chassis that could serve to knock down telephone poles. I let out a low whistle. Impressive. I take it the trunk had equipment for day-proofing? Duke coughed embarrassingly. Delgado didn't get a good enough look to see, Mr. Montrose. He didn't? Why the hell not? I fling a coaster. Why the hell does housekeeping insist on putting coasters in my room? In disgust. Because of the kindred in the way, Mr. Montrose. The what? Apparently, there was a recently embraced Canaanite, an African-American youth in his early teens locked in there. Delgado opened the trunk and the unregistered passenger started thrashing about. He shut the trunk and reported to me. Where is he now? He's at home. I rotated him off shift so our visitors don't see his face. Match it with any description a child in the trunk might give and put two and two together. I'll want to talk to him. Have him give me a call here. How about our happy couple? Duke shuffled his papers and flipped to another page in his notes. They're in room 141-3, and we're reasonably certain that they've done some crude light proofing. By the sounds at the door, they're sleeping in the bathroom, most likely in the tub. The arrangement is nothing we haven't seen before. Should we wish to extract our visitors quietly, they haven't even made contact with any of the local kindred, so it's not as if they'd be missed. Let me think. Do we have any descriptions on them? Without a word, Duke hands me an envelope containing enhanced images of the pair from the lobby security cameras. All right. I see the woman's quite attractive, and that cowboy hat looks like it's welded on. She probably dug herself out of the ground with it. The other one. I don't see anything interesting here. What's the deal with the third picture? I can barely see their faces. If you please, Mr. Montrose. Duke takes the picture in question, grinning that smug little grin that means he thinks he's about to show me up. If you will observe, this picture was taken from camera 4, which takes a low sweep of the lobby and silhouettes those who are checking in against the mirrors on those columns. Exactly, Mr. Montrose. Duke is nodding, and he still has that smirk on his face. I believe I suggested we install camera 4 for precisely that purpose, so that we might see if any of our guests might be La Sombra. They actually sent in a La Sombra this time. Beautiful. Duke loses the smirk and looks slightly alarmed as I chortle. Mr. Montrose, shouldn't we inform Prince Benedict? There's a La Sombra in the city. I cut him off again. It's getting to be a habit. I will inform the prince in due time. In the meanwhile, I think we're going to run a disinformation job on this guy. I want you to get me, let's see. How about Cantor? And get the team in place, and meet me back here in an hour. I'm up out of my chair now, pacing excitedly. This could be a good break. Duke is rising as well, heading for the doors as he mumbles some impeccably polite and Semitically empty parting. Once Duke is gone, I head for the other phone, the one that speed dials Benedict's private line. We know better than to take our conversations onto cell phones. One particularly sensitive conversation got picked up by a kid who stumbled across Benedict's frequency with some sort of pirating device, and I had to arrange a very tricky accident on short notice to hide the evidence. These nights, it's all as close to solid state as we can make it. That doesn't mean I don't eavesdrop on other kindred cell phones. I'm just not dumb enough to use the things myself. Benedict's phone rings precisely thrice before the prince picks up. Yes. His greetings always sound tentative, like he's afraid the receiver's going to bite his ear. Then again, considering how old Benedict is, I'm not surprised he still has vague suspicions about technology. Your Majesty, it's Montrose. We have 2 infiltrators at the Mirage, with a third party hidden in the trunk of their car. One of our 2 guests is a La Sombra, while his friend isn't anyone's guess. I'd say Toreador Anti-Tribute by her looks, but it's only a gut feeling. Interesting. Benedict rumbles and falls silent for a moment. What are your plans? I launch into my spiel. This plan might take some selling, as it's going to cost Benedict a valuable asset. Well, the fact that one member of the team's a keeper changes things. If he disappears, it sets whoever's holding his leash on alert. I'd rather put on a good show for him and send him back with a head full of misinformation than eliminate him. However, this deal's going to require a lot of selling for him to believe it. We had better be prepared to go all the way on this one, or he's going to think that something's up. Benedict flips through something on the other end of the line, moves some papers, and produces some other noises that I can't even begin to identify. I'm interested to hear what sort of lies you want to pass on to our visitor, and what you mean by all the way. You worry me when you say such things, Montrose. I'm usually the one who foots the bill for your excesses. You say that every time, but have I failed you yet? It's an old argument. Benedict loves the idea that I keep his city safe, but wishes I could do it for a bit less. When the job's this important, though, I prefer not to skimp on the details. I hear the prince chuckling on the other end. Not yet, and I'm hoping you don't start now. What will this one cost me? I take an unnecessary but soothing deep breath. How do you feel about Duke? An hour later, I'm in the sub-basement of the Mirage, the hole where they keep the janitorial supplies, the cleaning chemicals, and the bodies. Standing with me is a low-level Ventru flunky by the name of Alexander Cantor, who's dressed in a suit that's entirely inappropriate for this puddled mess. He keeps on stepping back and forth in hopes of keeping the gunk off his shoes. It's not working. I've got a headset on and it's linked to a mic that Duke is wearing. I'm inside the room, ready to go, Mr. Montrose. Wish me luck. I hear him breathe into his wire and then the rat-tat-tat of his knuckles on the door. Mr. Cruz? Mr. Cruz? Over the wire, I hear the distant fumbling and a muted voice complaining. I'm afraid the matter is of considerable urgency, Mr. Cruz. More mumbling and something about a girl. No, Mr. Cruz. There's no girl out here. Duke is playing his part just right. That tone of his voice indicates he knows the girl story is bullshit, and that he doesn't care if his target knows that he does. Then there's the sound of the door cracking open, and the curtains come up on Duke's final performance. We have rules in this town, Mr. Cruz. I beg your pardon? And Cantor does this odd little contortion to get as close to the mic as possible without touching me. There's more indecipherable attitude that comes over the line. Meanwhile, Duke isn't breaking stride. Yes, well, Mr. Stiers, it appears that you care little for the rules in our town. Now there's some shuffling and what sounds like someone walking off. I'm sure you're familiar with our traditions, and that you have no intention of flaunting them. My employer wishes to speak to you, and I'm to escort you to his offices. There's nothing for a second, then a wise crack and an assent. They're coming. The elevator grinds to a halt at the far end of the storeroom. The doors squeak as Duke and Cruz, or whatever his name is, walk out. Cruz is a tall and thin and good-looking, and he's flicking his eyes from side to side looking for an ambush. He doesn't seem surprised, though, that his meeting with authority is happening in a crud-hole sub-basement down among the bottles of floor wax and crates of toilet cakes. I swear that's one of the biggest weaknesses these Sabbat guys have. They think that since their big bosses like to hang out in shitholes, ours do as well. Benedict wouldn't be caught down here if there was a six-pack of Kane's blood sitting in the middle of the floor. Still, their delusions serve my purposes. A meeting that would seem like a transparent scam to any normal vampire makes perfect sense to a shovelhead. Duke and the La Sombra are talking, saying lots of nothing. I'm suddenly anxious to get this over with, and so I nudge Cantor. He looks at me with disgust for a second because I dared to touch him. Then he remembers his lines. "Duke, this isn't Tom Cruise," he says with precisely zero enthusiasm. "Next time, I'll get myself a Toreador." The ghoul and the vampire stop right on the mark I taped for Duke on the floor. Perfect. "We've already been through this. Your clerk spelled my name wrong," Cruise says petulantly. He puts his hands on his hips and looks around. It's showtime. I drop the offuscate and mentally give the guy points for not flinching when he sees me. Even other Nosferatu think I'm unattractive, but he took it in stride. Besides me, Cantor looks his usual impeccable self, radiating unconcern as he picks some imaginary lint from his Versace. Cantor may be a no-talent yutz, but he at least looks the part of a player. "Welcome to Treasure Island. I'm Montrose, and this is my associate, Alexander Cantor," I say. The keeper sizes us up, decides he might be able to take us both. I can see it in his aura that he's about to do something stupid. "Not business, pleasure. I'm in from California to do a bit of gambling." "And the kindred in the trunk?" I raised what was left of an eyebrow. His move. His tone is defensive. "We were driving in shifts. He had the night before. Perhaps an object lesson in how Prince Benedict keeps the rabble in line would do you some good." I laugh. A signal to Cantor to back down. What's going to happen has to happen, and heroics will just screw things up. Quite an odd set of circumstances, don't you think, Adam Steyer, from the Anarch Free State? I emphasize each capital letter to make it seem like I'm proud of myself for digging up those choice tidbits. "Perhaps an object lesson in how Prince Benedict keeps the rabble in line would do you some good." That's Duke's cue as he slams a meaty hand down on Steyer's shoulder. I grab Cantor's hand and pull him back into a shadow where I can hide us again. Duke's eyes get wide as he sees us vanish. That wasn't part of his briefing. Steyer turns and nearly rips the ghoul's arm off, then slams him against a rack of paper towels. Duke staggers, then starts screaming as the keeper does something to the darkness in the room that makes shadows spill out of Duke's mouth and damn near tear him in half. Beside me, I can feel Cantor tensing up like he's going to jump into the fight, and I have to clamp my hand on his wrist to keep him from going off half-cocked. Duke is down now. The keeper is tearing at his wrists and fumbling in his pockets for the elevator key. Next to me, Cantor is visibly shaking as he restrains himself from going after... what? The blood? The La Sombra? I don't want to know. There's a squelching sound, blood on boot soles, as the vampire heads for the elevator. Then I hear the familiar grinding sound of the doors as we're alone. Duke's almost gone when Cantor and I get to him. He's lost a lot of blood. That's actually a plus, as it makes what comes next easier. I kneel down next to him and lift his head up with my left hand. "Don't worry, Duke. It's going to be okay. I won't let you down. Everything's going to be okay." He looks at me, eyes dulled with pain, uncomprehending. I just hold his head up and mutter soothing nonsense as the blood runs out of him. Besides me, Cantor has his straight razor out and rolls up his cuff so that he doesn't get blood on his shirt sleeves when it's finally time to bring Duke so he doesn't get blood on his shirt sleeves when it's finally time to bring Duke across. Everything's going to plan. Everything's going to be all right, Duke. Everything's going to be just fine. Duke is sitting in the same old chair, rifling the same old papers. It took him a night to get back on his feet after Cantor embraced him. But considering what he's been through, it's a remarkably fast recovery. He's looking a trifle pale, even for a Ventru. But otherwise, it's the same old Duke, right down to the same ill-fitting blue suit. He's discussing the fallout from our little misadventure. We've discovered one body in the garage and one dead cashier at the parking lot exit. Taken care of? Of course. The cashier's family received the normal package plus some extra flowers. There was also one tourist, badly hurt when Stiers apparently clipped him with a tire iron from a moving car. But other than that, it was only one fatality. An untouched rusty nail sits in front of Duke on the table, a symbol of the way things were. It's important for him to hang on to that symbol, I think. So I made sure to pour it for him when he walked in. The little things count. And is that it? Apart from the traffic violations, yes, Mr. Montrose. We've painted the incident as he rifles the papers again until he finds what he wants. Some sort of gang incident with riffraff from Los Angeles. Fortunately, the robbery across town a few months ago makes our story seem credible. I nod. Good. Did we get a read on Stiers' lady friend? Yes, she was responsible for the corpse in the garage. Apparently she has some small skill with her favorite parlor trick. As D. Felice says, he saw her apparently appear next to the car while I was taking Stiers to meet you. Other than that, she did not evidence any sort of spectacular abilities. She did, however, seem to have a rather short temper to the point of near psychosis. The victim was a passerby headed for his own car, and she simply snapped when he walked by. D. Felice says it seemed that she was tired of waiting. And the kid in the trunk? I believe he's still there. I wave the detail away as unimportant. Fine. Whatever. So Stiers and his lady friend get away, convinced that we're a bunch of idiots and pushovers, and that Cantor actually has some power in this town. I mean, if we were tough, we never would have let him kill one of our prize ghouls, right? Duke flinches, but it's part of a hardening process. Once you're dead, you can't allow yourself to shudder at the fact. In the meantime, we learn the caliber of scout they're sending in, and that maneuver he pulled with the shadows tells me that Stiers is some fairly heavy artillery. If the other side is using guys who are that powerful for scouting missions, then an offensive is coming, a major one. But if we can keep feeding them false information about how weak we are, by, say, running away the second the big bad La Sombra takes a swing at a ghoul, we can make them overconfident and have them hit too early, before they're really ready. Duke nods, comprehending. He still doesn't like what happened to him. Not that I blame him one little bit, but he's a pragmatist. He understands the necessity. Meanwhile, it's up to Cantor to get him up to speed on his disciplines before the assault comes, while I have to train his replacement and maybe pick a few reinforcements out of the crowd. Across from me, Duke flips to a clean page and starts sketching out plans for improving the defenses on the parking garage. That's the way things should be. Loyal service and promotion once you've earned it. Now it's up to us to make sure things stay that way. Even if we can go to the Sabbat into striking too early, it's going to be a bloodbath, and I'm going to have to be going into triple shift to keep the masquerade in one piece. There are going to be bodies and bullets and blood and death everywhere. It's going to be a royal bitch to clean up. Still, it beats working.